Okay, so I'm just going to introduce the panelists. So if the panelists could unmute themselves in order of screen, feel free to talk.
So first we'll start with Lynette. Lynette is a senior at University of Chicago and she's majoring in economics. So Lynette, feel free to say hi.
Yeah, sure. Hi, so I'm Lynette. As they said, I am currently a senior at the University of Chicago. I'm an economics major and I also study computer science.
And again, just feel free to unmute yourself in order of name. So Harshini, if you want to go.
Yeah, I'm Harshini. I am a senior studying aerospace engineering at Georgia Tech, and I plan to go to business school in the future. So I'm really all about blending engineering and business in my career.
Awesome. Mia, feel free to introduce yourself as well.
Hey everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. And first off, thank you so much for having us. Happy to help out students who are interested in learning more about us. I'm Mia, as you can see, a sophomore at NYU, concentrating in fintech. So that's just a fancy word for finance and technology and entrepreneurship.
And Paulina, Nia, and Christine, feel free to introduce yourselves as well.
Pauline, do you want to go? Maybe I did not promote her to panelist. So Nia, do you want to go?
Oh, no.
Hi, thank you for having me. So my name is Nia. I'm currently a junior at NYU studying biomolecular science and computer science.
And hi, my name is Christine Zhang. I go to WashU and I'm in the Business and Computer Science Joint Program with a minor in math. And I'm super excited to be here, and I just want to thank everybody for inviting me to allow me to speak here.
Yeah, for sure. I'll introduce Paulina, and then if she's not promoted,
I'm here.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
sorry
here.
about that.
Her name it came up as your email weirdly.
Yeah. I'm Paulina. I go to UNC Chapel Hill. I'm a junior, and I'm double majoring in statistics and business, and I also have a minor in entrepreneurship.
Okay, awesome. So to stay in touch, we do have our Instagram, Women Business Chicago, WNB for short. And then we are uploading all of our sessions to YouTube. They will be up by the end of the week. And from the 3rd and the 10th, all those videos are up. And then if you ever have questions or want to reach out to one of the panelists or anyone who spoke at this conference, email us at wnbchicago@gmail.com.
And so here's how the panel is going to work today. We have preset questions for all the panelists that we'll be asking. And then after that, we'll open up for a live audience Q&A. So to get started, our first question is going to be, how did you choose your college after getting back all of your decisions during the application process?
Here, okay, we're just gonna go in order, or whoever shout out, feel free.
I can start. So I'm originally from the suburbs of Chicago, and so when I was thinking about applying for colleges, I really wanted to go somewhere out of state because I knew that it would push me outside of my comfort zone. Most of my friends were going to U of I, DePaul, big state schools in Illinois, which is great, but I just knew that I wanted something a little bit different. I applied to UNC early. I was originally a biomedical engineering major, but I guess I switched my major after first semester, but yeah, UNC just has a really good science program and it's been really great so far. So
awesome, thank you. And we can just popcorn it, or again, feel free to unmute yourselves.
I can go next. So I'm originally from San Diego, actually, and my decisions in college were basically between California Institute of Technology, Caltech, University of Chicago, and Berkeley. Those were sort of my final top 3 choices. And it really came down to, I wanted a small school, which is more of a Caltech, University of Chicago vibe. And I was a recruited athlete at Caltech from sophomore year. So I sort of knew everything about the school, had done 3 overnights, loved it. It's a very, I would say like everyone there is like super smart, and I definitely felt like I fit in, but I wanted to challenge myself and go out of my comfort zone, visit somewhere that's a little bit colder. So that ended up being the University of Chicago.
I can go next. So for me, I knew that I wanted to do aerospace engineering. That was kind of the one thing that I did know kind of going into my college process. And when it came down to it, I'm originally from Michigan. And so it was either the University of Michigan or Georgia Tech for me. Both of them had really good programs. But as Paulina mentioned, I also wanted to leave the state, try something new. I grew up in a really small town, so I wanted to go be in a city. And the thing that I really loved about Georgia Tech after visiting was the campus feel combined with the fact that we are in a major city in Atlanta. So you get all the benefits of both of those things. And I really appreciated how much opportunity there was for people in my major and in my program, and how much the school was willing to invest in us to help grow us as students and as future workforce.
I can go next. So while keeping in mind as a senior and touring dozens of schools, it was hard for me to decipher what school offered different things, because I saw that almost every school was practically the same. Of course, the location and sports teams, extracurriculars vary, but no professor can teach economics differently. It's truly what you make out of it. And I knew that NYU was the best option in that regard because I was exposed to immense amount of resources in the most innovative city in the world, as you can say. And so I could easily gain internships and college credit for them without needing to commute from the middle of the woods where most colleges are located. So I just got an exposure to a diverse student body and internships that way. And all my life, I went to the same school, K through 12. So I was with the same folks for 13 years. So I definitely want to branch out after that. And I wanted to go to a university close to home. I live in New York City, so it makes sense financially. And plus, I would never be able to work in a tropical, beautiful place like California or Florida, although California's weather is not so hot right now, no pun intended. But as I said, it's completely up to you on what you make out of it. I was fortunate enough to go to NYU for free on a scholarship, including graduate school. So that was some of the reasons why I chose NYU.
Thank you. So I think we're going to move on to our next question, and we're going to divide it a little bit. So basically talk about your major and what it involves. So I know that some of you are in business and some of you are in tech. So if we could focus on the business, and then people who want to talk about tech can go next. So if you're business, unmute yourself.
Yeah, so I'm in the Business and Computer Science joint program at WashU, and I always knew that I kind of wanted to do something with business and computer science because I'm really interested in the intersection of the two majors, because I think they're just so different, but at the same time they really complement each other. So with the business side of my major, I'm also really interested in entrepreneurship, and I think that WashU did a great job of, kind of allowing their students to explore whatever they wanted to explore with a lot of support. So right now I'm in a club explore, businesses that I kind of wanted to start or what I was interested in. So that's kind of what I'm doing with the business side of my major.
Thank you.
I can also go. So I study economics because the University of Chicago, that's the only business related major that we offer. And it's a really good, it's for when it comes to economic education, like UChicago is an amazing institution, but they don't do as much in terms of like teaching you how to do business. It's mostly, like we're going to teach you how to learn, and we're going to teach you to be awesome students, awesome employees, and we know you'll be able to figure it out from there. So we join a lot of clubs. I'm in like a business fraternity. So I ultimately knew that I wanted to go into the finance world, and I do have a background mostly in technology, so I didn't know a whole lot about finance and working in New York City and everything like that. But learning the basics of economics definitely helped me to sort of get there. And after that, it's all about, you know, networking with your friends and meeting new people and being able to interview super well. So
Thank you.
Similarly to Christine's path, I'm concentrating in fintech and entrepreneurship. So I've always been interested in the combo between finance and tech because it's such an innovative and creative space that is part of our lives in pretty much every single aspect. And they're frankly the only things you really need to know in life: your finances and your mental health, along with tech, because we use tech every day and we also spend money every day. And your financial health and the way you communicate via technology will always be pertinent in your life. So since middle school, I took my first programming class. And I remember distinctively, I was the only female in a class of 6 or 7 other males. And it was extremely challenging, but it made me more strong in a sense that understanding what challenging work means. And that really pushed me to understand and program in different languages and then ultimately go on to the finance side.
Thank you. And then if you're in tech, feel free to unmute and talk about it.
Okay, so I can start. So when I first went to NYU, I was trying to major in biomedical engineering. For me, I'm always interested in unmet medical needs, just having family history of cancer and Alzheimer's, etc. And also like the expansive, innovative nature of technology. So if you can combine those two passions into one. Unfortunately, my school didn't have this major for undergrad, so I took it upon myself to major in biomedical science and then take a minor in computer science so I can understand both fields and how systems work in both areas and then combine it into one to solve these problems in the real world.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, I'm probably about as tech as it gets because aerospace is obviously super math and science heavy, but I always knew since I was a kid that I wanted to do something aerospace related. I never really grew out of my space phase, so to speak, as you can see by the background behind me. But, you know, I've always just loved the entire aerospace industry because of how much impact it can have on people's lives. Everything that we're building, whether it's rockets, aircraft, satellites, is so much work coming together from so many different people, all kind of working towards one common goal, and I've really appreciated that. And Georgia Tech has done an absolutely amazing job helping me not only understand what aerospace really is and where I fit into it, but giving me a lot of opportunities to understand what I like inside the field, because I've found it's more diverse than I even thought possible going into college. And so I've had the opportunity to do some internships in different fields. I just finished one with Boeing working on new product development, and it's been really interesting to see the next generation of aircraft and things like that. And so that's definitely, I've always just been like an aerospace nerd, so this has definitely helped me with that.
Yeah, that sounds super cool. So our next question, I know that some of you kind of already touched on this, but how did you come to decide your major, and did you do any exploration along the way?
I can start that one. So similar to Nia, I was originally a biomedical engineering major. And so when I went through my first semester in college, I was taking science courses and math courses, and I kind of was trying to see what I wanted to do in the future, so related to internships, things of that sort. And I didn't really find myself as passionate as I thought I was about it. And so I switched over to statistics because I found that working with data is applicable in any industry. And so I thought that that would be really useful for me. And then I'm also really interested in business because my family is entrepreneurs. And so I've been surrounded by that my entire life. And so that's kind of where my inspiration came from.
Thank you.
I can go next. So, you know, if you kind of asked me when I was younger what I was going to do in the future, I would always say, I don't want to do business and I hate math. And, you know, if you look at me now, here I am in business and computer science with a minor in math. And I think I realized, you know, kind of growing up that everything is business and everything is technology. And I simply just couldn't decide between the two. So I decided to pursue both of them because I felt like, you know, as unsure as I am about the future and what I want to do, no matter what, again, like I said, everything is business and everything is tech. So as long as I have the foundation for that, I can kind of go wherever I want to go. And that is kind of how I chose what I was going to do.
Very
No, my
interesting.
story is kind of similar to Christine. So growing up, if you ask me, I always knew I wanted to become a doctor. Just growing up watching shows like Grey's Anatomy, like always being so interested in those technologies. In high school, I joined my robotics team. So for me, I love the hands-on aspect, problem solving, just figuring things out. So when I came to school, I wanted to combine those two. How can I do the physical, tangible problem solving, building the robots, and then meet these medical needs? So that's kind of how I combined it in school.
Oh, thank you. And I think we're just going to move on so we have time for everyone to speak. So not everyone's going to be answering every question, but in high school and also in college, for high school extracurriculars that helped you stand out as a strong applicant for colleges, what were those? And then in college, what are your extracurriculars and do they go along with your major?
I can start this. So in high school, I'd say like the main STEM related elective or extracurricular that I did was Science Olympiad. So I did that for 2 years and did a lot on the hands-on side, building like the little robot arms and whatever else they have you build for the competitions. But I'd say the thing that made me stand out was that I didn't just have STEM experience. I'd been dancing since I was a little kid. Music is a really big part of my life. I'd been taking piano lessons since I was a kid. And I feel like sometimes there's a perception that if you want to go into a business or a tech field that your experience has to be in that area. But any extracurricular can show commitment, leadership, soft skills, all of those things. And so that is what I'd say helped me stand out, was just my ability to show commitment and leadership, not only within the STEM field, but also outside of it. And in college now, I have a part-time job. So I work at a 3D printing lab and makerspace where I help other people learn how to 3D print, learn how to use wood tools. That's a really awesome kind of customer service blended job, if you will, except all the customers are engineers. And I also am a really big part of the Women of Aeronautics and Astronautics group. So I sit on the national board of that organization, and we really work to make sure that women, gender minorities, allies feel empowered in aerospace. I know that at my school, there's 20% women in the aerospace department, which is not nearly enough. So our goal is really just to make the women that we do have feel supported and do a lot of outreach to get more women interested in STEM and in aerospace.
Most of my extracurricular activities are based on my concentration, which can be a good or bad thing because you do want to expose yourself to new things. But I think the best time to do that is when you're younger because you have less responsibility, no one to support financially. So there's absolutely nothing to lose from trying and seeing where your strengths and weaknesses lie with your interests. So whenever I choose my activities, I make sure there's only a few, because the last thing I want to do is just add things on my plate that are not meaningful for me. So I want to truly add everything I do with a purpose, and that starts with helping people. So a few projects that I do outside of school, which I call my passion projects, is that I'm a brand ambassador for Morning Brew and the Forte Foundation. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of one of those two. And I'm also an entrepreneur myself and run a financial self-help blog. So that's some of the things I do, and it's definitely centered around finance and tech, but I also try to diversify through Forte and being a mentor and through the startup.
And then if one more person wants to go before we move on to the next question.
Okay, so I can go. So like I mentioned before, I was on my high school's robotics team, and this was mainly my driving force to applying and ultimately going to an engineering school. Just loving on the hands-on physical problem solving, working in the programming, electrical and mechanical departments, and just seeing how all these pieces in their own work together to create the whole robot. So currently at school, I'm working with Black Girls Code. I'm one of the technical instructors there. So it's so cute seeing the little girls age 7 to 17, teaching them how to code in JavaScript, HTML. A couple weeks ago, we did a VR lab. So it's teaching them how to make their own apps using Google Cardboard, kind of like a Temple Run simulation. Also working with this organization called Engineering Tomorrow. And that goal is to go to different high schools in New York City and introduce them to different engineering labs. So for example, one week doing a civil engineering lab, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and just week by week introducing them to different areas so that when they're applying to college, they understand or have a greater grasp and a better introduction into this field.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next question is about internships. For those of you who have had internships before, could some of you talk about kind of the best ways to go about getting them with networking, reaching out in different circles, just that kind of thing?
Yeah, I can take this one. So I guess in high school, my main avenues for finding internships were through friends and parents' friends and teachers. So for example, my sophomore year, I interned at the UC San Diego Supercomputer Center, which is just basically the center with like 5 different supercomputers. And that came through my teacher, who recommended I apply because she had other students who worked there before, and that was an amazing experience. And then in terms of just later on in college, so 2 years ago, I was at NASA JPL, which is the one in Pasadena, the one that's like in all the movies and stuff. And that one, honestly, I just straight applied. And they're definitely looking for women, which is great, because their application ratio is really, really bad, as you probably can imagine. So my mentor was a woman who had graduated a while ago, but she was super interested in just like taking me on and helping me. So that was also a great experience. And then most recently, my last internship was for Citibank, and I'll be going there full time, but they run a lot of diversity programs, and they run a lot of like women's programs as well. So I applied through the women's like diversity program my sophomore year, and they give you like a mentor, and they help you with a lot of the stuff that you know, if you don't have a parent working in the industry, or you don't have maybe you know, like friends or family who can guide you through, they give you someone who's been in your shoes to help you with the application process and the interview process. So I would definitely say use your network. Most of these positions I found out through someone in a club, an organization, something like that, and reach out to people. Don't be afraid. Almost everyone wants to help you, especially people who are older than you. So yeah, my advice is just don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, along with that, it's difficult to find an internship when you're in middle and high school because you don't have access to these opportunities, and especially you don't know that many people in the field just because you're not old enough. And that's okay. Any type of experience, whether it's working at a brick and mortar store to flipping burgers, anything that provides you experience will help you out. And so in some of the the earliest rather internships that I can think of was my longest internship in high school. So as a senior in high school, I had 2 to 3 months off before I started NYU. And I wanted to utilize that time effectively. So I reached out to Networks at LiquidNet. They're a dark pool trading firm on Wall Street. And I had done a program there, a coding camp there for 2 years. I volunteered there to teach coding. And I knew the HR managers there pretty well. And I asked them, hey, can I shadow some product managers and trading desk interns there? And what I told them specifically was not just that I want to shadow and gain experience, because recruiting is time effective and cost effective. So you want to make sure that you provide them evidence on why you could work there, how you can benefit the corporation, how to add value. And lo and behold, after I did show them that evidence, as much as I could provide, I became the youngest intern at the firm, and I worked there. I thought I was going to work there for 2 weeks. I ended up working there for 8 months. So after school, I would go there. But ultimately, even though that's pretty high stakes, you don't have to do that. I had interned as a tennis coach for 3 to 4 years before that, and I gained key core soft skills such as communication, team leadership, development, empathy, all of these skills now that are as pertinent as hard skills. And with my corporate experience, I learned hard skills such as Excel, databases, Jira, etc., that really helped me balance those two. So whatever experience you can get is great. You don't have to set that bar super high, especially at your age, but I would definitely utilize those networking connections. Those are key. But networking doesn't only mean meeting someone, giving them your business card or resume, and then reaching out to them 3 years later for a job. You want to keep in touch with them, not every day, but maybe once a month, just checking in, sending them an article that you enjoy, just making sure you're on good terms, because networks are everything, and they're the most important.
Thank you. I'm just gonna move on. Sorry if there's noise. My next door neighbors are having a bar mitzvah. But what opportunities have you come by that involve research? How did you go about getting that position, and what has the research been?
Okay, so last summer I had an internship working at NYU Langone, and part of that project we were researching different biomarkers to see how leukemia grows and divides within the body, and how if you understand the certain genes that are involved, how you can kind of backtrack in a way and prevent them from spreading. And kind of answering this question and the previous question before, just how the importance of stressing your network and not being afraid of reaching out and letting your passion show through. So for me, I'm currently in the works of pursuing this internship where you are leveraging mixed reality in the operating rooms, right? So how do you use AI? How to use all these devices to create the best like results for the patient and make it a less invasive procedure. So like doing research in creating the models, doing research in the diseases themselves, and then merging those together at the end.
Thank you. And whoever wants to go next. And then if you did a business research internship or anything, feel free to share that. Here, Harshini, do you want to go? I know yours is very technical.
Yeah, so I haven't really done any like on-campus research necessarily, but on I guess the internship side, I have done a couple of those, and I definitely agree with what all the panelists are saying when it comes to reaching out to your network. I really think that it's not necessarily all about like LinkedIn or events or any of those things. Sometimes it can just be reaching out to friends and utilizing your like personal support system. My first internship that I got was with a company called Hayco Cabin Solutions in North Carolina, and that was a friend of mine asking me if I was still looking for a position and recommending me because we had worked on a club together and she thought I'd be a good fit. So, you know, you never know who's going to help you get those opportunities, but I would say, you know, having mentored younger students like here at Tech, when it comes to research, the best thing that you can do is go talk to a professor or somebody else that whose work that you're interested in, and, you know, show that you are interested in it. Make sure you do some pre-research about the research, so to speak, and just be really open with them about, hey, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I'm looking for, here's how I can help you out. And 95% of the time, they're going to be more than likely to bring somebody else on board, because if there's anything I've seen from grad students and full-time researchers, they are very busy all the time and could always use more help.
Yeah, thanks for that. So our next question is, can any of you talk about the struggles that you may have faced being a woman pursuing a degree and a career in business and or STEM, maybe from your male classmates or others around you, and how have you overcome them?
As I mentioned earlier, my first programming class, I was the only girl out of 6 men. And frankly, that didn't change up to this point. This is now maybe my 15th, 16th class, learning how to code in various languages. And frankly, this gender gap we're not really breaking it at this point anymore. We're trying to promote it, to break it, but it's still a long way to go. And I think teaching financial literacy to underprivileged students, to female minorities, anyone who doesn't have access to it, can really benefit, because we need to break this gender gap in order for more inclusivity and diversity. 80% of CEOs at Fortune 500 companies are men. and they just have that privilege because they inherited that status. And women live longer, and they also manage money better. So we definitely need to find new ways to promote it. And I think this incredible initiative right here helps promote it to all the audience, learning that there's a real stigma against it, but there really shouldn't be, because finance is always necessary in your life. You only have two things that are really pertinent: your health and your finances. If you know those two, you'll be set.
Thank you for that. And
Yeah.
Rasheen?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we have 20% women in my department, which is not fabulous, but I'd really say that, the things that I've faced throughout college are never really in the blatant forms of sexism that you sometimes hear about and read about, but in microaggressions. And so we've done a lot of work within Women of Aeronautics and Astronautics to understand allyship, understand microaggressions, because a lot of times people who are in the majority don't even understand that the things that they're saying are potentially, casual sexism or potentially really dangerous, but they stick in our brains because, we're already fighting so many different battles to get to where we are. And so I definitely say that the number one thing is being able to use your voice and shut down things that happen. I know that when I started off in college, I was really afraid to shut down bad behavior when it came to people saying things that I didn't appreciate or didn't like. And I've kind of realized through, utilizing my support system as well as the organizations that I work with, that that's not the way that we're going to win this battle, so to speak. And so, it's uncomfortable and it's not fun, but sometimes it needs to be uncomfortable to move forward. And, taking the minute to be like, hey, what you said wasn't okay, let's talk about it, although it might be super weird in the moment, but actually can really help you and help the other person, because they might not even realize, because of what society's told them or all these other things, that what they're saying is like offensive or upsetting or any of those things. And so taking the time to have that honest conversation and calling people out on stuff that shouldn't be said, I think is the approach that me and other women in my department have taken to really moving forward with, gender equity and gender inclusion.
Thank you. And then,
I can also answer this
yeah,
one.
for sure.
So one thing I think that women in general maybe don't do enough is just supporting other women. So I think a lot of us have talked about, like tutoring and volunteering for, teaching computer science. I'm sure a lot of us do it. Maybe a lot of you do it as well. But in terms of the workplace, seek out female mentors, definitely. I think what people don't realize is that a lot of times you'll see men sort of just help each other along the ladder, and they slowly rise up together. And I think that's something that women don't do enough. It's not a competition, it's about, if there's one of my friends who's a year older than me, she's going to help me out because she wants to help me out. And I think that's super important, that if someone is looking for help from you, not to reject that, and for you to be brave enough to sort of seek that help. Because that's just unfortunately how the workplace works, is if you are connected, if you're willing to go, be brave, and you're willing to be an extrovert, you're more likely to succeed.
No, I agree with that. I've definitely been in situations being the only one in the room or one of in the room. Other situations, for example, in the CS department, having your intelligence questioned, feeling less than the others and your peers. Freshman year, this was something that I had to think about and reflect upon, just being one of only maybe 6 or 7 girls in the CS department. It's really hard, challenging. I think another part of that is reaching out to the female mentors, feeling comfortable in that situation, not being afraid to let your voice be heard, and understanding that you're there for a reason. No one can take your spot, and just working harder. And as you continue to lift up, rise other girls with you, so that this way we can minimize the gap.
Thank you. And then I think we're going to move on to our question. Pam asked, what is one piece of advice that you have for high school girls applying to college interested in business or STEM? And I know that's like a hard question, so take your time to think. There's so many things I'd say to people, but just one.
I'd say the one piece of advice that I would give is like, don't be afraid to be authentically you and keep being authentically you. It's really easy when you're looking at like when your friends and peers are applying to college as well for you to feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm not good enough. And all those other things that inevitably get into everybody's brains. You know, imposter syndrome is very much real and affects, I'm sure, most, if not all of us that are here today in some form or another. But, you know, as long as you keep staying true to who you want to be and what you want to see for yourself, then you're going to move forward in the best way possible. And that's the one thing that I would just make sure to always keep in mind through the unfortunately very complicated process that is college applications.
With that, oh, sorry. With that, I would also say explore your passions beyond your major and don't feel boxed in. For example, being a CS major, I only have to do CS things in college or do CS things in high school. I think that going with your major path and then having your passion to the side, because at the end, like everything kind of merges into one another. So it's cool to see how your unique path will be exploring, for example, in this one major, but having all these other projects and how they all come together.
Yeah, I would really echo what Nia said. I would be really open-minded when considering business or STEM and just let the opportunities come to you, because you never know where that is really going to lead you, and your path doesn't have to be linear, and it's going to change many times while you're in college, and everyone's still figuring it out, so don't feel stressed out, and everyone can take their own path in their own time. So
Yeah,
I think
to explore as well. You don't need to know your major by senior year of high school. I didn't know mine until maybe a few months ago, and I'm still exploring. Finance and technology is such a vast field, and there are so many sectors inside of it that I'm still determining what's best for me. So there's no rush. You don't have to have a job by the time you graduate. You can do a master's, you can take a gap year. It's completely up to what works well for you. There are definitely these stigmas and some sort of judgment on what looks best maybe, but you don't have to follow them at all. Really just take time to breathe and understand what you want out of life, because it's your life. You want to seek value out of it and you actually want to enjoy it.
one more thing that I'll add is if there's something that is unique to you, definitely try and make that stand out. So it might not be that, you know, you're the only one in the country that has that particular quality. It's very unlikely. But if it's something that you feel is pretty relatively unique, maybe no one in your whole entire class will have it, like that's going to be huge for you. You know, if you're like a great opera singer, like that's something that not anyone really does, but will really stand out on your application. So in terms of like pure application based, like my biggest advice would be craft your application so that it is unique and it's uniquely you. But you know, like maybe everyone plays a sport, but you're really good at, I don't know, badminton or something like that. That's also something that can really stand out, and it can get you into college more so than, you know, like starting your own business club or something like that.
All right, thank you. And then we did get another question from Anonymous. I know that the classes can be difficult for STEM and business. So when you struggle, who do you turn to for help?
So being an entrepreneur, this is very tricky because you don't have access to that many resources. We do have a Leslie E Lab, which I utilize, which is the entrepreneurial network at NYU, which is very helpful. But there are no hands-on experiences or coaches that I could really learn from besides just going to these info sessions. So what I've utilized is clubs on campus. I've learned about other startups that students are starting and just utilizing those networks through clubs. There are thousands of clubs at NYU, everything from, I don't know, it's crazy, baguette, just French baguette club to forming your own startup. It's everything. So you'll definitely create bonds and friendships. And as we mentioned previously, for internships, networking is key, and just understanding what people have gone through and and seeing how they shape their life and their experiences through that will really help you, because clubs are a huge part of campus, and of course extracurriculars as well. So you definitely want to utilize those, because in class, reading a textbook isn't going to justify that you learned that much. Outside experiences, talking with professors, utilizing clubs, networking, that's really what college is about, because you can teach yourself anything. It's really those soft skills, hard skills through clubs, outside resources. You have to be unique, because classes, sure, you'll learn from them, but you have to also utilize and think bigger.
I would say that when trying to maneuver these more difficult classes, that YouTube would be one of your best friends. For me, I know this personally when doing my CS classes. If I didn't understand a concept in class, maybe a professor online explained it better, or just reading different online threads on Google or Stack Overflow. Another thing that would be really helpful is forming groups with your friends. Maybe one person can teach it better than the professor did. Also going to office hours and seeing if there's any clubs at school that offer tutoring, or there's just other groups that are focused in this one area, and then just working all together and figuring it out.
One thing that I've found to be super useful is like getting material from upperclassmen. So the way I've gone through college is upperclassmen and PSET groups. PSET meaning, like, I don't know if everyone has PSETs, but like problem sets or homework, I guess you would say in high school. Find awesome friends who work just as hard as you. Like, they don't necessarily have to be the smartest people in the world, and I'm not certainly the smartest person in the world, but surround yourself with people who try and they show up to classes. That's been the key for me. Like, I might not succeed at every class, but having people who can teach me things, and I can teach them things, that's super important. And what I think, I'm sure many of your schools have this as well, but one thing is that fraternities, they form like banks of questions, and they form banks of materials that different like people can access in their fraternity. And like a lot of times other like women's organizations don't necessarily have this, and I'm a huge proponent of passing on materials to underclassmen. So I'll save everything I have, and so will my friends who are older than me. So even if it's not the same teacher, it can be about a specific topic I don't know, I can access their notes, and it's extremely useful. And I think it should be done more often. Women supporting women. So I definitely encourage you to do that, whether you're in high school, college, or any point in life.
Thank
Great.
you.
I think we're going to wrap it up with one final question. We have one from another anonymous attendee. They asked, this is a hard one, what makes your college unique?
Of course, with NYU, you would say New York City. And I'm not going to lie, that was it. I live in New York City all my life. And, you have to weigh the financial decisions. It's only 4 years. And I don't know if you want to take out loans and go into debt for school. Personally, that's not my decision. So I was lucky enough to get a full ride to NYU. So that's also why I took it, not just for that full scholarship. If I got a full scholarship somewhere else, I would have to weigh the options. I didn't just go there because it was free. It was also close by, access to immense amount of resources, internships. Professors usually work part-time at banks, so I really get to understand their experiences. And a very diverse campus. As I mentioned, I was part of the same school for 13 years with the same group. Our class was 70 kids, so it was very intimate, and I wanted to branch out that way.
I think for me, it would kind of be the opposite. So I'm from Chicago, and the thought of kind of going to a smaller school in a smaller city was not my first choice, but I think that WashU does a really, really good job of, we're not just a number. And no matter where I turn, whether it's my counselors, my friends, my teachers, my TAs, I can always find help wherever I go. And I think that was super, super valuable to me. At the end of the college application process, I was deciding between University of Michigan and WashU. And obviously, you know, two very, very good academic campus like schools, but very, very different social life wise. And I think that I ended up picking the school that was more intimate and was a little smaller because I went to a high school that had, you know, 2,500 kids, and I did kind of want that smaller school feeling. And I think that's what really, really worked for me and my needs academically.
I think one thing that makes NYU stand out is flexibility in terms of like the extra classes that you can take. So like I mentioned before, me being studying bio and computer science, right now some of my free elective, I'm taking 2 AI classes, right? So it's really interesting to learn how like the building blocks of AI, the internalized bias in those systems and the different applications that they can have. Other classes at school can be disability studies, just a lot. There's a huge range, the amount of classes that you can take. Also, other flexibility and outside opportunities. So at my school, we have these things called VIP, different projects that you can work on alongside your classes. So whether it be Concrete Canoe, whether it be doing augmented reality in the libraries, just a whole bunch of different projects that you can do in conjunction with your regular classes and get credit for them. So that's really cool.
I think the most unique part about University of Chicago is we have a couple sayings. The first one is where fun goes to die, which is not necessarily true, but it's the saying, and it's not 100% false either. And then the second is it's all good and well in practice, but how does it work in theory? So that is my school in a nutshell. If you want to learn theory that maybe you may or may not apply in real life, and you don't necessarily care about that 4.0 because you won't get it, that's basically the University of Chicago if you're interested in applying still.
There's a big WashU U Chicago rivalry, so I know that we say that about U Chicago all the time.
I'd say for me, the thing that I really love is that everybody is passionate about something. Like everybody is a nerd in their own way here at Tech, regardless of like what it's about. Like obviously I'm a big aerospace nerd. I have plenty of friends that are exactly the same, so we nerd about that. But there are people that are, everybody has, you know, a real strong connection with something, and that's what they're choosing to do, because it is a hard school and STEM is a hard field, but that passion is what carries you through because you know that you're doing something that you really want to do. And so I feel like that combined with like the different levels of social life, so you can really be a part of whatever social life interests you, everything from like really hardcore Greek life if you're into that to like, you know, whatever. I think we have like a lettuce club if that's something you're into. Like there is anything and everything that you could possibly want in terms of what you make your social life out to be. And so I think that that's what makes it really unique, because you can really do and be anything you want to be.
I would say what makes UNC unique is although it's a really big school, there's so many organizations and you can really join anything and make it feel really small and be a part of a community. And the professors are also really great and they're always willing to help you no matter what. Even if that's not your major, they're always willing to offer up advice. So
Okay, thank you everyone. And that about wraps it up. Thank you for coming to Women Mean Business. It's so sad it's coming to an end, but I just wanted to give a shout out to all these wonderful ladies who spoke on our panel, and a shout out to people who were able to attend all 3 days of Women Mean Business. And thank you if you couldn't, we totally understand. Thank you everyone.